Season 2 of The Past has finally arrived. I don't know about y'all. I'm excited. I'm ready. We're overdue. I feel like I've been away from the mic forever. It's been about a month, but it's been a worthwhile month to reflect. What's good, y'all? The Past is back. Episode 145. Rolling into season 2, man. I don't even know where to begin. Anyone who has been hanging on and been patient with the process, thank y'all. I'm not going to tell y'all the meal and spill and the infamous words of trusting the process, because that's not what it's about. What I will say is just prepare for a better show. That's my best advice and my number one suggestion or recommendation I can give you all. As if you all may or may not know, I am your host, BT. We do these shows. I do these shows weekly. Have been in flux about whether they would be on Sundays or how I would do my days. Found it convenient that Tuesdays might be my best day, and oddly enough, I've returned back to where it all began and where I was more in my element of doing my shows, which is at the library. I can still be vocal without being loud, but still having fun, giving you all a good show. I want to just say, if I didn't say so already, thank you to anyone who's been listening, that's hung around, that's been patient through the shows, trying to get everything back on track. It's a lot of topics. Like, a lot of stuff has happened since I last recorded. I will admit that life has forced me to grow. So before we get into the show, before we get into the growth and the transitions, I always do my marketing and my promo. Podcasts are uploaded each week on Spreaker.com. If you want to check out any of the previous episodes, you can go to Spreaker.com/Brate Podcast. The microphone that I am using is the Blue Yeti microphone. Decided to go old school and return back to the stand on the table, let it rock and do what it does. I was initially going to do my adjustment of having the microphone hanging, but I was like, I'm not bringing all that stuff. It's much easier to just kind of go with what works and keep it simple. What to expect this year, I'm not going to lie to y'all. I don't know. This year will be a much more organized and much more format-based podcast. It's not going to be just shooting from the hip and just throwing shows together and hope something comes together. I really want to give better content to my listeners, and I also want to have better content to represent me as a podcaster. So those are going to be the number 1 and 2 tasks of 2018's podcast, which kind of ties again into the New Year updates. Shows will be a little wordy, but they'll be wordy for beneficial purposes, and I'll explain why as we get into that. So without further ado, as we stick to the storyline and we stick to the format, we'll do our sports first. All our sports are still organized. We'll do our segue into the stuff, have our artist spotlight on cue, and of course the infamous ads of the week. If you are also unable to access Spreaker.com, you can go on pastpodcast.com. I have the episodes uploaded there. You don't need to have Spreaker installed. You can just click on the image. It's going to be an image that shows where you can hit play, and it'll play no problem. If y'all have issues with that, I do have other sources and other ways of you getting to the show. If you are inquiring about any podcast information, pastpodcastbt@gmail.com will be the place to go. I don't know. I know this is like the first show in a while, so the intro of it is going to be a little wordy, so just roll with the punches. I'm making a lot of changes and a lot of adjustments, so bear with me as we go through the process. The first topic that we'll get into, since it is pretty fresh, pretty new, it did happen pretty much about literally almost a week ago, actually. If any of you have or have not been aware, there was a college football playoff championship game that was played, and that put the SEC foes Alabama and Georgia against each other. Alabama did end up winning their 5th championship in 9 years. So to kind of give you the storyline, Alabama's latest group of hotshot recruits delivered on college football's biggest stage, and the Crimson Tide needed every big play from them. Quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, Tagovailoa, I probably messed that all the way up, capped a second half comeback with a 41-yard touchdown pass in overtime to fellow freshman Devontae Smith in Monday night's 26-23 win over Georgia to give the Tide a fifth national championship in 5 years. The youth movement started well before that play. It featured runs by Najee Harris and a touchdown reception by Henry Ruggs III with help from a big catch by Jerry Jeudy. When the game that mattered most came around, we got opportunities and we made the most out of it, Harris said. The outgoing stars passed the torch to the next wave a little earlier than expected. Tagovailoa replaced starter Jalen Hurts to start the second half with Alabama down 13-0. He passed for 166 yards and 3 touchdowns and flashed some running ability too. Harris ran for 64 yards on 6 carries and delivered some big fourth quarter runs. He had a 16-yarder and a 35-yarder to set up a field goal and keep Alabama alive. Ruggs caught a 6-yard touchdown pass in the third quarter. Jeudy had a 20-yard catch on Alabama's tying touchdown drive late in the fourth. Then came Smith and Tagovailoa and a final freshman connection on 2nd and 26 after a sack. I looked at Tua and said, "Trust me." He nodded his head. Smith said, "When I saw they were in cover 2, I knew we had a chance." The freshmen were matter of fact about their accomplishments. Making plays and winning titles is why the prize recruits came to Alabama after all. When they just called anybody's number, we were ready, Smith said. That's what everybody comes here to do. When your number is called, you're here to make plays. The players who played pivotal roles in getting Alabama to the title game, like Hurts and tailback Damien Harris, didn't seem to mind sharing the spotlight with the youngins. Tagovailoa, Najee Harris, and Jeudy were all 5-star recruits joining the fold of a team that reloads annually. We expect stuff like that, Damien Harris said. No matter who you are, no matter how long you're here, no matter what your experience is, whenever you get here, you're expected to play a standard. We've got a lot of young guys that were able to do that this year and in this game. We had a lot of older guys come in and contribute as well. Benched or not, Hurts was in the middle of the celebration and all smiles in the locker room. He had led Alabama to the national title game as both a freshman and sophomore, but struggled in the first half. Coach Nick Saban benched him in what Hurts called an executive decision. As a competitor, of course, you understand it, Hurts said. As a team player and as a leader, you've got to do what's best for the team. If that's what's best for the team, then I support it completely. In a national championship game, all the personal things, that's out the window. You want to win the game for the team. So this game had a lot of suspense to me. Because initially, it was Georgia's game. Then it seemed like it was Alabama's game. Then it got down to overtime. Overtime, Georgia kind of did their part. Alabama kind of responded. Georgia did their bit. Then Alabama looked like they were on the ropes. They had gotten sacked. And, of course, Tagovailoa came clutch. I feel like this game had a lot of key things to happen. First and foremost, as mentioned earlier, there's little to no reason why this won't be an overtime classic. It's a shoo-in. On top of that, regarding with sitting Jalen Hurts, it was a chance to kind of say, all right, you did what you could, you played, you showed out the first half. We appreciate you've done. You've been a valuable asset to Alabama, to the Crimson Tide, Crimson Pride, whatever. But we're gonna go ahead and put Tagovailoa in. And, as mentioned, Alabama was down at the half. They were down 13-0. And, anytime Alabama plays, they're more known for a play from behind team anyway. So it worked out even more to their advantage. I will say this, though. You can't take anything away from what Georgia did as a unit or as a team. Because Georgia already wasn't expected or projected to be there in that place anyway, especially with them having to beat Oklahoma to get to that point. and I'm maybe having it backwards because I know Oklahoma and Clemson had their respective games, and actually that was right because Alabama played Clemson because everyone was expecting it to be Alabama and Clemson in the championship game, but it ended up being Alabama and Clemson in the semis, and Georgia and Oklahoma legit laid an egg in that game. If you go back and look at it, it was tough because their quarterback really didn't. He played his game in that game in Oklahoma, but it wasn't really a big part of it. And I know I'm veering way off and giving y'all kind of backstory, but as I said, haven't recorded in a while, so I want to go ahead and make sure I don't miss any big pieces or key components to what has or has not happened involving college football, because now we're a couple of weeks away before before draft combine comes, before the NFL draft, before a lot of guys are already, have or have not addressed whether they're declaring for the draft, things of that nature. So just something to think about. Speaking of drafts, they want to make these kids great, and I don't see it. And I'm going to talk about this in a very broad but simple context, and I'll explain why. So LiAngelo and LaMelo Ball both are, if you may or may not have been caught up or may not know, are currently playing basketball in Lithuania. And this is kind of a two-part piece. I'm going to get into all of that in a moment. I'm going to read the story to you all as to what happened, and then we'll chew this up really, really, really simple. So LiAngelo and LaMelo both went scoreless in their pro debut in Lithuania. LiAngelo and LaMelo went scoreless in their pro basketball debut, finishing a combined 0 for 7. The younger brothers of LA rookie Lonzo Ball played in the Lithuanian League for BC Pranai on Saturday. Their team lost 95-86 to Lietkabelis Panevezis. LiAngelo went 0 for 3 from the field in just more than 9 minutes. His 16-year-old brother LaMelo played 5 minutes and 16, going 0 for 4. The brothers signed with the Lithuanian team last month after LiAngelo withdrew from UCLA. He was suspended indefinitely following his arrest for shoplifting during their recent tour in China. Update to add, if any of you have or have not been keeping up, those players who were involved with that suspension are no longer, they were suspended for the remainder of the season, because they did say indefinitely, but they didn't give a time frame. But they did confirm it was for the remainder of the year. This then sparked a Twitter spat between Father LeVar Ball and President Trump. Gonna get into that in a moment, or later on in the podcast. LiAngelo and LaMelo Ball combined for 29 points in an exhibition game against the reserve team of Zalgiris on Tuesday. It was the first of 5 planned exhibitions designed to showcase the Ball brothers. Another is scheduled for Monday, which they played pretty good, and I'll talk about that too. In basketball crazy Lithuania, the game is often dubbed the second religion and attracts huge crowds to arenas even in small towns. There have been several Lithuania players in NBA teams, including Portland Trail Blazers center Arvydas Sabonis and Zydrunas Big Z Ilgauskas of the Cleveland Cavaliers. So, as I said, a lot of stuff to hit with this story as well. I feel like nerves got the best of them in this game. As I mentioned, they went scoreless in their first pro game. Now, exhibition-wise, they looked good. I believe LiAngelo had 19, LaMelo had 10. There was more of a getting their feet wet, getting into the groove of the game, learning basketball all over again somewhat, but just kind of getting out there and seeing what the game was about. Now, I've noticed a pattern, and maybe it's just me. In their exhibition games and playing against like the minor league version of the teams, they show out. It's kind of to them like they're playing either in a summer league or an AAU game. All well and good. When it comes pro games and it's like prime time and it's like, all right, it's time for you to show up. We've only seen one, but in that one game, it was confirmed that they've got to definitely find a way to get into the rotation. Will they start? It's going to take a while, and it also is going to factor into the length of the season. That's not really being addressed or talked about. I really and I didn't put this as one of my bullet points, but I'm going to say this anyway. This is more of a business move for LeVar than it is for the boys to play. I feel like them getting the playing time will help. How it's going to help them as far as their NBA career, we don't know, because there's no telling if they'll even be thinking about the NBA in a couple of years, let alone if they go to their own father's league that's still projected to occur this year. I believe we talked about that on one of the shows, and I might be wrong because I know it may have been in that stint of me taking a break. But LeVar is starting his own league to give kids a chance to kind of come in and get basketball in their DNA of some sort and make a little bit of money playing, even if they're not able to play at the collegiate level or make it to the NBA. But I will say this. There's promise. I don't, and I'm going to be, not going to be devil's advocate, but I'm going to be like transparent podcaster for a second. The assumption or the idea of LeVar, pushing the boys, pushing them, getting them to the next level, he's doing it with an intention, but it's also gonna prepare them. The two of them now are gonna get like that feel of basketball a little bit, and then it'll prepare them a little bit more for the NBA if that's what the goal is. Because the goal, of course, from what he's stating, is he wants them to be in the NBA. Not sure about about LiAngelo. LaMelo, I can see it, but LaMelo still has to develop. He hasn't developed fully yet. Lonzo is in a unique spot because he has developed, but he hasn't developed. And here's why I say that. He's developed as a athlete as far as being able to play the game, but he hasn't developed as a person as far as understanding and learning the ins and outs of the NBA. Because the tough part is, as a rookie, you kind of get it as you go along. I've talked about this with Dimitri before, and I didn't say this, and I guess I'll tell you all now. I'm still working with Dimitri. We still are working together with the show. It'll be possibilities. I'm gonna talk with him, and we'll talk about that off air. But I'll be having him as a special guest, a co-host, from time to time. It works out easier for both of us, and then also kind of getting the routine of me getting back into doing podcasting again. But returning back to this story, last year, Brandon Ingram went through the same thing. His rookie year, he was a no-show. A couple years before that, Julius Randle was a no-show. Julius Randle has had some years. He's been able to kind of get into his own, become an NBA player. Now it's within a year or two, he has the possibility of being a all-star. That's a stretch, but it's possible. Brandon Ingram, I could see in 4 or 5 years being a valuable player to the Lakers or to an NBA team. Who knows? But right now, it's that trying to get a feel and get into the groove of the game. The next story, and you'll see that a lot of this is going to be NBA related, and I want to make sure I don't forget. Okay, all right, I'm good. I want to make sure I'm looking at where I'm at on my show. The next part I'm going to get into, there was and I don't want to call this a fight because in the NBA players don't really fight. They kind of just scuffle, and it's like attempts of punches, but no one really hits anybody. Serge Ibaka and James Johnson had a bit of a physical interaction with each other. I'm kind of going to this will kind of be the aftermath of it, but I'll also kind of play into how it all went from, the trend in the process. But Serge Ibaka did offer an apology after he threw punches at James Johnson. So I'll read this story since it's going to be what happened after. But James Johnson, Serge Ibaka were in the mid-game, and it was kind of like they were pushing back and forth. And I guess James Johnson took it a little personal. James Johnson was ready to punch and swing, and Ibaka didn't realize that it got that serious. He kind of backed off, put his hands up. My fault, I ain't know. Of course, even with the NBA seeing it, cameras were everywhere. They processed, looked over everything, and turned out that he did indeed end up getting suspended. So fast forward to where we are now. Serge Ibaka then provided an apology, and likely the story will be broken down in this. So I'm not. This will be pretty simple and direct. Serge Ibaka who was suspended for Thursday's key Eastern Conference clash with Cleveland, did offer an apology to the Raptors and their fans. Sometimes uh, during the game, my emotions can lead to bad reactions, and I'm not proud of that. This is why I want to apologize to the Raptors organization, the fans, the staff, and the teammates for my suspension, which he did post this on his Twitter feed. He was suspended for one game after trading punches with James Johnson in a game on Tuesday. What this means is that the Raptors are going to be without him and his 13 points, 6 boards, and 1 block per game as they host LeBron and the Cavs, who are chasing second place. This is not the first time he's had an outburst like this. He was suspended back in December after he was involved with an altercation with a team staff member. So to kind of give the long haul of what happened from that, even with him being out of the game, they did beat the Cavaliers, and we'll talk about the Cavaliers in a moment because I do have them. I kind of wedged the story in because I forgot, but it's just still that process of learning. But he did not play in the following game against the Cavs, and the Raptors still ended up winning that game. But Ibaka usually is able to keep his cool. Even when he was in Oklahoma, he had moments, but it was never to that extreme. But you can tell, like, this was one of those, okay, you pushed me, I'm not going to take pushing very well, and it almost turned into a fight. In the NBA, at least from my personal experience, I really don't see or don't realize that fights occur. That's just my personal opinion. Now we're going to segue, and I usually am prepared a little better because normally we start off with this story, but we didn't, and things happen, so accountability comes into play again, and that is we're at the playoffs of the NFL. So when we last did the show, and there will be no, we could do a tab for it. I can throw one in. My kid. Whoa, that just caught me off guard. Okay, that's gone. Sorry, y'all. I was like, what? But the NFL playoffs are here. We have gone through the wild cards. We've gone through divisionals, and now we're at the conference championships. So to kind of push you all forward, bring you up to speed, and it'll kind of be a balance, imbalance segue. As you all may have or have not been aware, there has been a weekly battle, a weekly matchup. Dimitri and I used to do where we would pick teams, and I was able to go back and tally. If any of you may or may not have known, I kept tallies of each week. We did it up until week 15. I did week 15, and then after week 15, I kind of just said, all right, let's take a break, let's chill, let's relax, and regroup. So regrouping, relaxing, reflecting, putting pieces together, we did go ahead. His so for the final week we did together, which was week 14, he went 8-8, I went 5-10. I'm sorry, I went 8-8, he went 5-10. I probably said that the right way, I don't remember. Overall, my record was 107-67. His was 82-48. So that was his last week of picks. The following week was my last chance to kind of get a hurrah and a pickup of points and opportunities. So I did go ahead, and I was 12-4 for week 15. Had a lot of L's that were just kind of went the way they did. And for the overall, I was 119-71. So for the final records, and it's literally, I never would realize it would be this close. But then again, it's like it's weekly picks. You either know it or you don't, or it just happens the way it does. He actually beat me by 0.05%, or I guess you could say 0.005. Excuse me. I was 0.626 and he was 0.631 in the win percentage. Like I said, I was 119-71. We both were over 500, so that's a plus. And we kept a good run with the schedules and calling games, but there were a lot of games that moments came where I almost was like, "There's no way I'm gonna get this game or be able to call this team during this matchup." But nonetheless, it went pretty well. We're both in the same boat right now. He's without Atlanta's not in the playoffs. Obviously, Carolina got knocked out. We in the wild card against New Orleans. New Orleans caught probably the toughest L of the weekend, to say the least. They literally a missed tackle like that should never happen in a game, and Diggs did literally he took advantage of that. And with that being the case, they are going to the conference championship. So we're now down to, as the saying goes, and then there were four. So we have Jacksonville and New England, which nobody expected Jacksonville to even be in this position. And on the other side, you have what we kind of saw as the case anyway, Minnesota and Philadelphia. Who do I think will? That sounded very. Whom do I think will be in the Super Bowl? I am going to take the wild. One side, I'm taking the dark horse. I'm just gonna tell y'all like it is, and it's part because I'm anti New England, but also because I just feel like they have a better chance, or I'm rooting for them more. I'm actually going for Jacksonville, and to be fair and to be honest, I've told a couple of people this, and many people may or may not know this story. Coming up as a kid, watching sports, watching football, everybody was into their teams. Dallas, Washington, Atlanta, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Expansion teams came out. It was Carolina and Jacksonville. I was stuck on Carolina more, but my backup was always Jacksonville. I don't rock Jacksonville that much the past couple of years, and we kind of know why. This definitely is considered to be a breakout year because I think nobody really expected them to even be in this conversation on this plateau. But I'm picking Jacksonville from the AFC. From the NFC, I'm picking Philadelphia. I like Minnesota. Case Keenum is great, don't get me wrong. Nick Foles, I'm trusting him. I know it's a weird process to trust, but I'm going with Nick Foles. And I want to really be clear in saying that because it can go either way. And what makes this a more ironic Super Bowl is that out of the four teams that are in this position, only one team has a Super Bowl. So there is a chance that if New England gets knocked off, we'll have a new Super Bowl champion. Like, we'll have a team that has won their Super Bowl for the first time. What team it will be, we don't know. But that all comes down to, of course, Jacksonville doing their part. So I'm kind of giving you the quick cut and dry to the point picks for those games. We'll keep an eye on how that all comes together next week. And then those teams who win will be in the Super Bowl. And then, of course, before the Super Bowl, I may do a fun pick of the NFC for the NFC and AFC Pro Bowl, since we'll likely know what players will or won't be playing in it. So we've given that throw to the NFL, and I guess I could have kind of thrown an NFL story with the other NFL story I have at the closing, but we'll spin it back to the NBA again. And I talked about it earlier with Ibaka as far as being out. Ibaka missing that game against the Cavs. There was uncertainty how the Cavs would play. The Cavs have hit a road bump or roadblock right now. And it's a very weird roadblock. So I'll give my portion, and then I'm going to read the story that I have regarding this issue. The past couple of games, I won't say that they were games that they were supposed to win, but they're games that look suspect, and wondering what Cleveland team are we going to get? And I state that and I mention that because Isaiah Thomas has come back into the lineup. His PER probably is horrible. Rewind. PER, for anyone who may or may not know, is player efficiency rating. When you look at basketball games, most people look at all the generic stats: points, rebounds, assists, field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, free throws, made attempt, all that stuff. Two stats that never get enough attention that I always talk about are player efficiency rating and plus minus. Plus minus means if you take Brian out of the game and you put this person in the game, how does the dynamic of the team change? Does it improve? Does it decrease? How does the team trend? And that's what you kind of see, and that's what you usually get with the with the lineup of with Isaiah Thomas being thrown into the mix. They were trying to get him in. He worked a little, played a little bit when Golden State and Cleveland played the first time, but he really didn't get a lot of minutes or a lot of time. Now they're kind of getting him into rotation, and he's still trying to get a feel for the game. They played against Toronto, and he was a no-show. I want to say he went like 0 for 10. Or he might he missed a lot of shots at first, and I think he ended up making like 1 or 2 shots for the game. I don't have any conflicts or concerns with him, but we have now reached a point where the alpha males have spoken, and LeBron James and Tyronn Lue, who's the coach, which I'm going to get into that because I don't have it listed, but I will address this. They're running into, they see issues that the Cavs must address. The Cleveland Cavaliers opened the season in a 5-7 funk of sorts. Time may have passed since then, but to star forward LeBron James, the Cavs are right back where they once were. Cleveland was dismantled in Toronto last night, falling 133-99 to the Raptors in what was both the Cavs' most lopsided loss in 2017 and 2018, and the third straight game in which they allowed at least 127 points. The efforts did not seem to be there for the Cavs all game long, as the Raptors rebounded the Cavs 63-35 and outscored their bench 76-48. And Toronto did this all without Serge Ibaka, who was out due to the suspension, and All-Star Kyle Lowry because of his back. The Cavs have dropped 6 of 8, dating to a Christmas Day defeat at defending champion Golden State. After the game, Coach Tyronn Lue issued a challenge of sorts to his team. We've got to be better. We know that, but until we play better defensively, I think offensively, sharing the basketball, everyone on the same page. And if guys have agendas, we've got to get rid of our agendas and play the right way. When he was asked about the agendas, Lue did not really elaborate on it. He just said just what I said. Cleveland players couldn't really disagree with Lue, as Isaiah Thomas, Kevin Love, Dwayne Wade, and others talked about what Cleveland needs to fix going forward. The biggest thing that I see we're not playing for each other right now, offensively and defensively. This was said by Isaiah Thomas. He had a rough game on it in Thursday, and that was what I was talking about earlier. He shot 2 for 15, so I knew it was like I was like we made 1 or 2 shots. Defensively, everybody's on an island playing defense by themselves. Offensively, it's a lot of one-on-one, no ball movement. It's things we can fix. That's the good thing about it. We just have to do it, and we have to do it now. You can lose games, but you can't get blown out. With how good we really are, we can't allow these type of games to happen. D. Wade chimed in saying sometimes you get in a slump, guys start worrying about me. You start to play for each other on both ends of you have to play for each other on both ends of the floor. If you're into yourself on the offensive end, if you're struggling, then you're not doing what you need to do defensively and vice versa. We've got a lot of vets on this team, said by Kevin Love. If there are agendas, I don't see it, but I'm sure whoever he's speaking of or speaking to with that, he'll address it as we usually do. Then LeBron, during his pregame media statement, didn't sound too worried about the Cavs' struggles, stating this is just during the regular season. He seemed to change the stance a little bit after Thursday's loss, though he clarified what happened when TNT cameras caught James in a heated discussion with Cleveland player development coach Phil Handy. James then said, "We're in a funk. Once again, we're back to the beginning of the season. Just gotta find a way to get out of it. It's going to start with us and just everybody getting back to what we were doing when we were playing good ball. But we're so fragile. I don't know where it kind of went wrong or what happened to switch back, but we've got to try to pick it back up and find it." Frustration boiled over for the Cavs in the first quarter of Thursday when they had cameras on TNT cameras caught James in a discussion with Phil Handy. Just us trying to figure it out. It's not for everybody. We came in there and we talked about it, and that's what happens at times. Family is not always about a bed of roses. The Cavs visit the Pacers. They were visiting the Pacers, who they lost to as well, and are seeking their first win against a team over 500 since January 2nd, home against Portland Trailblazers. They're 3-7 in their last 10 games and 10-10 overall this season against teams over 500. And it's ironic because they lost to the Pacers, they lost to Golden State. They are on that. They're on that slope, and it's tough in the NBA to get out of a slump unless you start winning. No one talks about you if you're winning. No one's talking about the Cavs no one's talking about the Celtics because they're winning, and I think that needs to be addressed. Team trending, so my things that I interpreted or got from this article. First and foremost, the winning ways diminished. They hit the loss. They were dropping L's. They were struggling. They went on the win streak. Everything was fine. The Arnold, the cartoon, that was becoming the trend. That was LeBron was having fun with that on Instagram. Great, no problem. Push forward. They started to lose again. Once you are losing, that's when the media is ready for those conversations. Like, hey, what's going on here? Like, what happened? Something changed. We need to figure out what it is, and we need to fix it. As far as the team trending, like I said, it's hot and cold. It's you don't want to go cold at the wrong time, because going cold could put you in a 5 or 6 seed in the East. It doesn't take long. I have this as a point, but it's a true statement. LeBron and Kevin Love are two different types of players. And I know that's obvious, but I'm going to elaborate on why I say that. Love is a very passive player. They need Love to be like the dominant attack force. LeBron is more of a attack player, but sometimes LeBron has to get the attention led to him to get those open guys and trust his teammates. LeBron has an off and on again issue with trusting teammates. I know this is probably going to go way left, but it's something that I've seen as a weird trend of his since being in the NBA. A lot of games, he fits in, he does his job, everything's great. Other games, he literally is a no-show, and he has no problem with being a no-show. And that's just it's not cool. And I mean, you have to be willing to kind of like work through that phase or work through that bump, that bump in the road that comes with playing in the NBA. I put who's the scapegoat only because whenever situations like this come, it's, well, whose fault is it? Who do we put blame on? By nature, by default, it always comes back to the star. I, for some reason, don't have LeBron as the scapegoat for this. I'm going to say why. Despite this being his 15th season in the NBA, I want you to hear what I'm about to say, and I'm going to repeat what I just said again. Despite this being his 15th season in the NBA, he's still in the conversation of MVP talk. That tells you a lot. Because right now, if you look at the Cavaliers without Kyrie Irving, with possibilities of a trade happening, because I feel as though, because no one's talking about him, I'm going to say it, Tristan Thompson might be gone. Tristan Thompson might end up being traded to the Clippers for DeAndre Jordan. I'm strong in saying that, but I'm honest in approaching that. I'm not backing down. I know that's a reach, but it's a statement that it's something that could happen. I feel as though this phase will happen. The main thing from LeBron's point of view and how he's looking at it, and I'm thinking the same way as he does, all they have to do is the easy part, make the playoffs. If they make the playoffs, we aren't going to be talking about this any further. As long as they're not in the playoffs and as long as they're having that diminishing record of some sort, this conversation will be going on for a while. Like I said, and I always do this in each episode when I talk about these stories. We'll keep an eye on the Clippers, on the Cavaliers. One other story in the NBA, because I didn't have it as a tab, and it happened yesterday. First and foremost, and I talked about this on the podcast, on yesterday's podcast about gaming, the gaming sesh. Happy MLK, yesterday was Martin Luther King Day. It's always one of those days that it's either enjoyed very well or it's kind of taken lightly and not really addressed or looked at, however you want to look at it, regardless, whatever. For some reason, basketball players were having moments yesterday that I just don't understand. First and foremost, Philadelphia played against the Raptors. Kyle Lowry was playing in that game, and during the game, there was a little bit of a scuffle between those two. They had a disagreement. Kyle Lowry, was walking off the court. Ben Simmons was too. Kyle Lowry decides to give the reference of, hey, we can meet in the back tunnel. Now, I know I'm supposed to be talking sports, and I know I haven't done shows in a while, and I'm catching up on my brain cells and trying to remember how to do this again. But Mr. Lowry, no. And I'm not just saying just because it was MLK Day, just period, no. That's not cool. And then to add insult to injury, my team, the Houston Rockets, Chris Paul made his return back to LA. It was his first game playing against the Clippers since he was no longer a Clipper. And he had an okay game. The Rockets lost, but the bigger story was that a scuffle broke out during their game. So bad to the point that security and LAPD had to be involved. Not acknowledging again that this was MLK Day, just acknowledging right now, and this is a sports spectrum 101. And I'm gonna get into the Reuben Foster story I have in a moment. I want to get this off my chest before I forget. There is nothing wrong with people having disagreements and handling those disagreements. The problem becomes when the disagreement is so extreme to the point that it can possibly put more attention on your sport than is deemed necessary. Here's what I mean when I say that. Right now, we are not talking as much about basketball is getting this attention. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm sorry. I needed to turn up a little bit because I was like, I know I was hearing myself, but I wasn't hearing myself. Okay, that's better. Conversation of basketball is not the big story right now. Right now, we're a couple of weeks away from the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is getting this attention. Don't get me wrong. But if you have moments and situations like this come up in the NBA, then you're drawing the wrong attention to your sport. And that's not good. It's just not. I mean, it's already, like, if you think about it, baseball has made its goal to remain quiet due to all of the stories and subjects and discussions about steroid use and who's juicing. They've cleaned that and cleared it as best as they can and had to move forward because that's the name of the game. Take notes, NBA. Just my opinion. I know I'm a small podcaster, but it's something that I'm thinking about and I look at. Jumping back into football, and sometimes when opportunities come our way, we don't know what to do with those opportunities, and this is a prime example. So I'm just going to throw this story, and I'm just going to let it flow. San Francisco 49ers linebacker Reuben Foster was arrested in Alabama on Friday for possession of marijuana. And this story broke on the 12th as well. Per Chris Bitterman of the Niners Wire, the Tuscaloosa County Sheriff's Office booked Foster on Friday and set his bond at $2,500. Foster failed a drug test in the 2017 NFL Scouting Combine when his urine sample came back diluted. He attributed it to having food poisoning. I know this is a positive PC podcast, but bullshit. I couldn't eat much, but I had to drink water and Gatorade, Foster told NFL.com's Ian Rappaport. Then a few coaches said something about me being too light, and I'm a coach pleaser. I don't care what everybody thinks, but I care what coaches think. So I drank and ate as much as I could without throwing up. Then I went in there, drinking water, trying to flush out my system from whatever was making me sick and trying to keep my weight up, and took the test. The 49ers selected Foster with the 31st pick overall in 2017. The 23-year-old led the team with 7 tackles for loss and ranked second with 72 total tackles despite missing 6 games due to injuries. He played college football at University of Alabama. He was named Dick Butkus winner in 2016 as the nation's best linebacker. Now, I know I shouldn't be asking this question, but it kind of draws this question to come close. Is this the time when we should start wondering, is this the point when we start to wonder if we should legalize marijuana in the NBA, in sports? It's going to be surfaced because I feel like this story comes about every so often. I don't have a horse in it. I won't say whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. I know stats can kind of back in saying where it really isn't a huge impact, but I'm really wondering, and I'm curious to see what's going to come about players having these incidents occur like this. And what's tough about it for him is he's just, like, technically speaking, he hasn't finished his first year of the NFL. Like, finished his first year games wise, but off season, all that stuff. You haven't even made a year since you've been drafted. So good timing on your part, sir. So I do appreciate anyone who's hung on and stayed around for this part and this long of the show. This is where I do my somewhat of a segue, somewhat of a turnaround, adjustment, modification, however you want to put it, and get into the stuff. So sports, like I said, sports was a little rusty, but we'll get it. This is where we learn and we build and we get it in the right groove. This is the stuff section. I don't really have much stuff, but I have good stuff. That's a good way to put it. The first story that I will talk about relates to Major League Soccer, MLS, USA Soccer. They are going to be creating their own FIFA Esports League. And to some people, that may or may not seem like a lot, but I'm going to get into the story and then I'm going to give some takeaways that I got from the article and just what we possibly have to look forward to. So there's a new esports organization in town in partnership with EA Sports. Keeping that in mind for a bit. Major League Soccer is launching eMLS, an esports league in which 19 of the 23 MLS clubs will select a competitor to represent them. Those gamers will compete in the eMLS Cup, which will take place during PAX East in April, and the winner will then go on to the FIFA 18 Global Services and have a chance to play in the FIFA eWorld Cup. MLS clubs will only be able to send one gamer to represent them in eMLS events. As Polygon reports, it is not yet clear if they will receive the same benefits and salaries that NBA 2K League or Overwatch League players do. The future of eMLS is also not set in stone just yet, as eMLS is currently only set up for FIFA 18. Another key point. Having professional gamers represent their teams is becoming more and more popular for soccer clubs. Clubs like VfL Wolfsburg, Manchester City, and West Ham United have signed professional gamers in the past, as did New York City FC last year. Gary Stevenson, president of MLS Business Ventures, said in a statement, This step forward into competitive gaming is a key component in our partnership with EA Sports to promote deeper engagement and connections between MLS supporters and the millions of FIFA players around the world. All right, have fun with this one. Just walk with me a little bit, and I'm gonna bring it home. So we got your esports. Esports is the new hot commodity, which we'll get into in the next topic, ironically. And as I mentioned, as I've talked about last month, NBA 2K League. 2K League actually started this year. Didn't get a lot of attention. I'm not sure if the NBA's backing it, as they may be backing it, but they're not really pushing and promoting it. Don't know why. It's another chance of sponsorship. Haven't really thought about it, but it's got a similar format. The MLS is known, but it's not known. And I'm not putting the MLS down. Like, let me be transparent in what I'm about to say. Because I know this is like jumping back into sports, but it's telling you all an honest assessment of gaming and of technology. I mean, of where we are with sports. Soccer is not America's sport. Soccer, and whenever you think of soccer, you think of the Premier League in England, you think of Italy, you think of Germany, you think of Barcelona, Spain, all of those countries. USA just coming on the map, just trying to make their mark. They've been like the MLS league as a whole has been in existence for quite a while. But they're needing something to kind of give them that pizzazz and that attention. This can be a big step towards that. It was talked about earlier in the article, and I'm going to address it again. Hey, we thought about EA Sports as being our involver. Let's not worry about Pro Evolution Soccer, which, by the way, is like a known game that some people still do stream or play. FIFA's the big baby. I get it. If I were in that position, I would make sure that I'm crossing platforms or crossing games. Like in NBA 2K's case, it's 2K. There's no NBA Live. NBA Live exists, but NBA Live, and this probably is throwing shade at NBA Live, because now that I'm thinking about it, NBA Live hasn't really had to push like it did. Like when it first came out, it was NBA Live and it was James Harden, et cetera, but it's been NBA 2K. FIFA, it's FIFA. You talk about FIFA before you talk about Pro Evolution Soccer. Wondering and inquiring how sponsorships can play into this is valuable, strictly because with MLS teams, they still have they're not going to have their name on their kits. I was ready to say jersey, and I was going to get yelled at. On their kits, they have whatever their sponsor, their company is. Those companies, that's money. That's opportunity. That's when they pointed out, because there was a point mentioned regarding salaries. If it's going to be similar to the NBA 2K League, you can do that if you are able to use those sponsorships that you have the companies or the teams wearing already. Having it start off in April should be pretty good as far as qualifications and getting the ball rolling. I think that'll be fun. I'm looking forward. Hopefully more streamers are on Twitch who play FIFA, get into it and get this to kind of be like their stepping stone and get some, a bit of exposure. So I'm all for it by far. I know that's like probably me sounding like I'm the cheerleader of all cheerleaders, but it's something that would be prosperous. I've talked about esports and e-leagues before. We had mentioned there was an arena that had opened in LA a few years back. I mean, not a few years, a few months back. I feel bad because I can't think of the name of it offhand, but a Las Vegas will be opening their first esports arena in March. Now, give a brief backstory before I talk about this story. In LA, you have the esports arena now, which is, that's the heavy hitter. When it comes to Wednesdays, Level Up Gaming, weekends, you may see Smash tournaments going on. Guaranteed League of Legends, like your big League of Legends matchups, are happening there. Las Vegas is jumping on board. I'm all for it. I think this is going to be huge. So last year, Allied Sports and Esports Arena announced plans to convert a Luxor hotel and casino nightclub in the Las Vegas Strip, first dedicated. I'm sorry, into the Las Vegas Strip's first dedicated esports arena. That arena is almost complete and is scheduled to open on March 22nd. To complete the opening, and I feel like I'm going to find that story. I'm sorry, y'all, because I'm the reader that has to make sure I know what I'm talking about. All right, yeah, that was right. All right, to celebrate, the arena is almost complete and is scheduled to open on March 22nd. To celebrate the opening, Esports Arena Las Vegas will host a multi-day live stream tournament that's invitation only. With Las Vegas rapidly becoming a hub for esports, Esports Arena Las Vegas at Luxor will be the city's home for competitive gaming and interactive entertainment. Allied Esports CEO Judd Hannigan said in a statement. That was a mouthful, by the way. Along with the Las Vegas spot, Esports Arena has also debuted its mobile esports gaming venue, Esports Arena Drive. It's a semi that unfolds into a gaming arena with a stage, social media center, and VIP lounge. You can check it out in the tweet below. Next month, Esports Arena will host a multi-day tournament at Daytona 500. The Luxor's dedicated esports space will have a competitive stage, LED video wall, telescopic seating, daily gaming stations, meaning the space is not just for major events, and advanced streaming and production studios. While it may be the first full-time esports venue on the Strip, it probably won't be the last. The Millennial Esports Arena opened in downtown Las Vegas last year, and other Vegas locations have expressed interest in creating esports spaces, which could signal that this is the city's next big move. Las Vegas saw a slight revenue loss in 2016. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. In 2016, and preliminary members, I can't read. And preliminary members suggest that there were fewer visitors to the city last year than the year before. Gambling revenue as percent of total revenue also hit a record low, meaning other sources of revenue like esports could be a welcome addition. Didn't factor that in, so I'm going to talk about that as well. This story triggers a lot of things. And first thing that came to my attention is that it's going to be a massive hub of gaming. And the first story, because they did talk about it in this story, because I was like, what is the other place that they had? Because they already have the Millennial Esports facility there, and that was major for them. And the fact that they're turning this hotel into an esports arena, that's even bigger. You're gonna have more. That's give you more income, more revenue. When you got sightseers who are there, you got something for the kids to do, like a lot. Because a lot of times kids may go to Las Vegas and they may not find anything that's to their liking, but they may find this and say, "Oh, they're playing Overwatch. Oh, they're playing Tekken. They're playing Street Fighter. Let me sit, watch them play. Send them over there, let them chill, let them do what they want to do." Now, the next part that I'm thinking of, and no one's looking at this yet because it hasn't officially occurred, but in the event that once the Raiders are in Las Vegas, getting the Raiders in Las Vegas, having esports in Las Vegas, that's revenue waiting to happen by far. Like, easily waiting to happen. It's something we don't think about very often, but it's part of that transition as well. Putting gambling and gaming together. We already are talking about how gambling is illegal, X, Y, and Z, but we make exceptions to it because companies don't want to lose money. All those fantasy sports events that produce money, it's gambling involved in that in some way or some manner. Even down to when you do March Madness tournaments, it's gambling involved sometimes, or it's a risk. It's like you can't uncontrolled gambling, but then have a control on it when you see fit. You can't. It's just you can't have it both ways. It's humanly impossible. But with this idea, it's possible that this could be like a huge move for uh, Las Vegas, and most importantly for esports. And I'm gonna say something before I go into the next topic, because I know I've talked about it a lot, and a lot of people maybe look at me and think that it's crazy because um, you wouldn't think anything of it, but it's something to think about, and that is the fact that 10 years ago, esports was pretty much non-existent. It was a foreign language. Nobody had a clue what it was. No one seen any bit of relevance behind it, and you would have been right. Now here it is 10 years later. Rick Fox, I always say Rick Fox, but a lot of major investors, a lot of NBA, FIFA, as we talked about today, more companies are starting to jump into it and say, you know what, this actually might be a worthwhile investment, and I feel like we should be a part of it or get in on the opportunity. So I'm saying all that to say, don't be surprised if esports jumps into that. I mean, esports is the trend now, but if it really carries and continues the trend as expected over time, because right now it's still trying to find a way to make its mark and make itself stand out. But for the most part, it's pretty relevant, especially from what I've seen on the West Coast. Humongous. Like, I'm trying to tell you. That's why I think I'm spending more time, even with me looking at different Engadget stories and articles that are shared about sports or technology. Esports stories will slide and slip into that quick, and you're like, oh, I didn't know any. Oh, okay, well, that's something I didn't know about, and that's new for me. But it's the new thing. It's a trend. It's what's hot. So just take that in mind when you're looking at what you may be looking at, want to do, or be interested in, especially if you have a technical or technological mindset. All right, we're near our home stretch, and we've tiptoed a little bit past the 1 hour mark. If you've hung around this long, I do appreciate it. We have our artist spotlight coming up next. Before we do the artist spotlight, however, I found something that I want to add in that I'm personally doing for myself, but also for others who may need support or may need like something to kind of give them, like, just to talk about a couple of things. Domestic violence is not a laughing matter. And a lot of people may see me wearing a purple bracelet, probably has no idea what it is. It has hope, faith, and courage on it. I have one that I have in my car, but I'm about to give it away soon. But this week was one of my, like, and it was ironic of doing the podcast now with everything that is like kind of built up in the past couple of days. My sister, she was a victim of domestic violence, and it took her life. And I talked about this a while back in one of my episodes, but I really didn't get too into it, and I really didn't talk much about it at the time. I feel as though this year was a heavy hit for me personally, because one of my other sisters wrote a status, and it talked about how, it's 10 years since she passed, and we're coming up on her 10-year anniversary. And you think about it and you look at it and you realize, okay, a lot has gone on in that time. A lot has changed. And then I'm looking at myself and I'm thinking, okay, I need to figure out a way personally to share with others, that the message is not just to start and stop with me. Each week And even if you skip by this part, that's fine. But someone who's listening may need to share this part with someone. And I'm going to make sure I mark it personally to share. And I'm going to put it in each episode. I'm going to keep this page on every episode of the podcast. And I'm going to read this number, and I'm going to guide you to this location. If you need help, don't try to do it on your own. First and foremost. First and foremost, if you're able to and you have the opportunity, call 911. Let someone know. But if you're really trying to get through a crisis or a critical situation going on in your life and it's domestic related, call the National Domestic Violence Hotline. That number is 1-800-799-SAFE or 7233. 1-800-799-7233. Or you can go to thehotline.org. And if you need to quietly get help and not have anyone know that you're calling for help, that's understandable as well. I'm going to do some research, and I'm glad I'm gonna say this now so it'll be remembered when I go back and listen to the podcast. I want to make sure that those who need help, because there are on both iPhone and Android devices, there's a way to do a distress signal in getting assistance without having to call someone. And I can't remember the code offhand, but it's a way to do it. But I'm gonna look that up because we shun and we downplay how important domestic violence is. As I mentioned, this article or this tab will stay in the podcast each week, and I'm not just doing it because of my sister. Another story from me: the year she passed, I found my way of giving back and my way of being an encouragement as spending time, like as far as with my friends or with people, anyone who I was close to, I would send inspirational quotes. I stopped doing it a couple weeks ago. It'll likely pick back up again because I did not realize the impact or the importance of doing the inspirational quotes. So I'm going to cue that back up again. Didn't mean to have that emotional moment. My bad, y'all. I know it's like, when sometimes that I've learned, when life moves you, you just gotta let it move and just go for what it is, and that's just what I'm doing. I am pleased to share today's artist spotlight, not just because today is her birthday. Oh, and before I forget, because I'm not into it, anyone who's in their respective frats or sorors, I believe there are some Founders Days today. I don't know. I know Zeta Phi Beta today, but those who are in their thing and doing your bit, happy Founders Day. But for me personally, my founder, my musical, I love a lot of music. I listen to a lot of artists, but anyone who knows me knows you won't hear me talk about music without talking about Sade. And Helen Foshade Adu is today's artist spotlight. When I tell y'all how much I can talk about this woman, it's crazy though. It's crazy to me that she's 59, but to me, I'm like, anyway. Let me go ahead and give you a biography, a bio, or a breakdown of Sade. Sade is a singer who struck a chord around the world in the 1980s with sultry soul-inspired songs like "Smooth Operator." Born Helen Foshade Adu on January 16, 1959, in Ibadan, Nigeria, Sade was raised in London. In the early 1980s, she signed with Epic Records and recorded her first album, Diamond Life, in 1984. A huge hit thanks to such singles as Smooth Operator. The album won Sade a Best New Artist Grammy, and her subsequent multi-platinum albums established Sade as a top-selling soul and pop artist. Musician, singer, she was a musician and a singer. Born in Nigeria, raised in London by her English mother. Sade developed several interests as a teen, including singing, fashion design, and modeling. She sang with a few local bands before signing with Epic Records and recording her first album, Diamond Life, in 1984. A huge hit in her native England, the album also had mass appeal across the pond thanks to such singles as Smooth Operator. In 1986, she won a Grammy Award for Best New Artist. Sade's subsequent multi-platinum albums, Promise, Stronger Than Pride, and Love Deluxe, established her as a top-selling soul. I can't read today. As a top-selling soul and pop artist. She took a new route with her 2000 album, Lovers Rock, which was released 8 years after Love Deluxe and incorporated a more mainstream sound. The record, and particularly the chart-topping single, By Your Side, helped her win over new audiences. 2 years later, the album and ensuing tour inspired her first live recording, Lovers Live. Sade returned to the studio and released her sixth album in February 2010, Soldier of Love. Sade married Spanish filmmaker Carlos Scola in 1989. The couple divorced 3 years later in 1996. She and Jamaican record producer Bobby Morgan had a daughter, Isla Morgan. Where do I begin? So anyone who hears me talk about Sade always knows that I give my transparent and my honest story about music. A lot of music started and stopped for me with artists, but Sade I always stayed on top of. I would say between her and Stevie Wonder, I owned every album. I've done Stevie as an artist spotlight already, I believe, but Sade definite in my queue. A lot of people, anytime I play, like today, I was on Facebook, going through social media, random radio, checking things, and then somebody posted, "Oh, today's Sade's birthday." Stop what I literally was doing, posted like a video. I want to say it was from By Your Side. It may have been from. No, I'm sorry. It was. So shows how special I am. It was Soldier of Love. I posted Soldier of Love first. Then I posted my song. My song for me still to this day is Feel No Pain. If you have not listened to, I believe it's on Love Deluxe, listen to Feel No Pain. You will have a totally different understanding of an adult and a man on so many levels. I share that song and I talk about that song a lot, and it's just a true statement. But anyway, I just think the world of Sade, and I feel frustrated because I've heard stories of her performing here in Virginia, but I never got to see her perform because when I say rarely tours, she rarely tours, and I can totally understand. So. It is what it is, but I don't really get... some things are just going to be out of your control, and that's just kind of the way you got to look at it. We are at our favorite point of the podcast, where I usually am a little bit more chill, but much more animated and excited. And I will admit, today's Ass of the Week is a great one. It is a great one, and I'm going to tell you all why. So... first and foremost, I guess I'll do these in order of year because our new information is new. But our old information, I'm going to give this as an award because I could have done this in the year in review podcast, but I really didn't think about it and really didn't cross my mind. But when I looked back and really realized 2017 introduced us to quite a few asses of the week. Quite a few people did some dumb shit. Just bottom line, there's no nice, pretty, cute way to put it. And that's okay. But when it came down to me really having to look at Who was the ass of 2017? It's tough. It was tough. I talked to a couple of people. I talked to my sports connection. I'm not gonna cause it. I'm not gonna be petty, but I talked to my sports connection, and we had a conversation about it, and he gave his input. I will admit that it was a tie between two people. Number one would be number 45. And for the sake of the podcast, I won't, well, I mean, whatever. Trump was definitely ass of the year for 2017. When it came to just doing dumber and dumber and dumber and dumber and dumber shit, he made it clear he could do just as dumb of things as he could time and time again. And it was just what it was. It was already going to be a headache from the point he was to go through the inauguration because it was a huge transition. And he has done things his way, and he hasn't cared what anyone thought of it. And no, I don't have a tab for any of this. This is just all improv and just know-how and logic of what has gone on in 2017. We've moved on, but it's just interesting to look back at how simp he was as 45. But he's not alone. He is definitely not alone as ass of the week. LeVar Ball, you, sir, you get my co-ass of the week or co-ass of the year. It's one thing to make comments and not back them. It's another thing to make comments, back them, be brave behind them. Think that no one's gonna realize what you said was what you said, and literally talk so reckless that it caused such a rift on your son who's in the NBA having to face a lot of these stars. It was a tough battle for Lonzo when they played against the Clippers on game one, and Patrick Beverley was literally in his face the entire game just to get under his skin. Lonzo has had a struggling year, but what has made it more struggling is having to deal with his ass of a father. He's a great parent. Like, let's throw the podcast away, offline conversation, just talking to y'all for a second. He did his job as a father as far as raising his kids, taking care of his wife, being a man. I am not going to take that away from him ever at any point. Some of his antics and some of his statements, he confirms and has proven to us time and time again why he is not media oriented. And that's just the best and simplest way to put it. There's no pretty or cute way to curl it up. And I'm not going to try to either. It's no need to, because it literally speaks for itself. So, LeVar, 45, I look forward to you two introducing yourselves to the Ass of the Week section more frequently and more often in 2018. I'm going to try not to have you on as much, but if you make some dumb statements or dumb actions, 45, you might make it, because I've done pretty good not putting you in. The only simp moment you had was with the national anthem, but that's, it is what it is. Looking forward to how that's going to go at Super Bowl Sunday too, but I digress. Now, fast forward to our current Ass of the Week. Now, the story is late, but the simple fact that this occurred tells you a lot about football, about the culture, about losing, about how odd it is that a couple of years ago, the Cavaliers had just won a championship. First championship in Cleveland in 60-some years, I think. Whatever. And a couple years later, the Cleveland Browns decide, not only are we going to go 0-16, we go celebrate. And not just celebrate, we're going to have a whole parade. So this story broke on January 6th. I will have the article in the show notes, but I'm going to read it because I have to give y'all. I want you all to feel the foolishness that I'm about to share in this story. And it's so ironic that the first picture of it says "Stupid Parade, Believe Land, Go Browns." Just gonna run. That's how we starting out. Just run with it. As fans held up tombstones bearing the names of former Cleveland quarterbacks, while others drank beer in the First Energy Stadium parking lot. Another woman at the Browns' perfect season parade handed out wristbands bearing the words, "One before we die." The Browns went a perfect and winless 0-16 in 2017, the second team in NFL history to lose all 16 regular season games. To celebrate or mourn, Cleveland fans circled the stadium for a parade. The route made a giant zero. It was that kind of macabre type humor that I think the Browns fans have. Parade organizer Chris McNeil said per ESPN. I think we have every right to have a parade after this organization has given us nothing now for how many years? The Browns have won one game over the past 2 seasons combined. They have not made the playoffs in 15 years, the longest active streak in the league. Cleveland police estimated between 2,500 and 3,200 people attended the celebration/protest. They show images, they show videos. Not everyone was terribly happy to see the parade, including a group of fans who counter-protested and Browns players who questioned fans' commitment to the franchise. Tweets, information there. Things are looking up for Cleveland. In truth, it can't get much worse. The Browns are guaranteed the top pick in the 2018 draft, and they also have the 4th pick thanks to a trade with the Houston Texans. Now, I got a follow-up story for that, and then I got the best ass of the week already, especially for week 1. What made this an interesting story for me was the process on getting like a grand marshal, getting someone to getting it proposed, the whole setup, all was done by the city and approved. So it makes it even more of a sad, sorrowful process that they went this far. My only question, because it wasn't said in this article, if any of the players participated. Even more of an intriguing question. That list that they show with Tim Couch's name on the back of the jersey and everyone that's been a quarterback for the Browns in that tenure, did any of them go? And if they did they put a brown bag on their head so nobody knew they were there? Just things that are in my mind and in my weird dark space to be concerned about regarding this story. So, of course, the seller
can't tell you who they are.
And
but this
when I say I be trying to go deaf, I think I want to just go out in style. It's the plan. This is what happens when you aren't used to looking at videos or normally I'm reading my articles on my tablet. So reading them on the computer is new. So when stuff comes in, I'm like, oh, okay, that was very loud, but we're back. So of course, the celebration has happened. Sorry for white noise. Celebration happens. LeBron responds. His response, it's so bad that it's laughable. And in the underlying of this article, it says, let's hope LeBron's Cavaliers never go 0-82. That'll be the day. Let's see, make sure this isn't too windy of a story, but I'm gonna read it anyway. LeBron James has some thoughts on the people of Cleveland throwing an 0-16 misery parade for the Browns, and those thoughts are a little bit complicated. On one hand, LeBron seemed to derive some enjoyment from the absurdity of the whole thing. I mean, it's not every day you get to see a city take to the streets, not in unbridled anger, but in mock celebration for a team that has accomplished the very difficult task of winning just a single meaningful game in 2 years. I got a kick out of it. I can't even sit here and say that I didn't. You know how you see some shit and you're like, that's not really happening, right? And it's so bad that it's laughable. So when I see the video at Brown Stadium, I was more like, I cannot believe this is actually happening. And it actually happened. It sure did happen. And it looked like a pretty wild time. It's estimated that over 3,000 people showed up to the most depressing sports parade of all time. Some showed in protest, but much of the event was a union of sad people coming together to make the most of a very difficult situation or season. Or a difficult season or seasons, many seasons. But how would the Cavs star feel had the city responded in similar fashion to his own team? Well, that's where the complicated feelings kick in. Explicit content. Fuck yeah, I'd be pissed, James said when asked how he'd feel if he were a player on the team. But how are you going to be pissed at the fans? It's not like they don't show up. I mean, damn, it's 1 in 31. If our fans decided they want to have a fucked up parade and we were 1 in 31 the last 2 years, you can't be mad at that. It's fucked up. I understand that as a player, but you got to try to fix that shit. It could be worse. How about they just boycott a season until y'all win 2 games in a row? Luckily for LeBron, it seems very unlikely that any NBA team he plays on ever goes 0-82. So he didn't. So it's kind of almost like him saying he understood the joy and the fun in doing it because it was kind of a prank and a joke. But it was also like, as a city, we come together for losing. That says a lot about a team or a town. But I've seen much worse, so I'm not surprised either. Speaking of much worse, this story got shared with me a while back. Well, not a while back, a couple of days ago. And when I saw it, I was like, I don't even know if I could put it in the show, but it happened yesterday and it gave like kind of the aftermath of it. So here we are. Referee was suspended and he apologizes for tripping Nantes player in PSG game. So Tony Chapron has been suspended after being kicked out. He was being caught kicking out at Diego Carlos and then sending off the player following an apparently accidental collision between the pair during Sunday's Liga 1 clash with PSG. He aimed a kick at the defender while on the floor after the pair accidentally collided in added time at the stadium. I'm not going to try to pronounce that. Carlos was shown a second yellow card, apparently for dissent, a decision that left the host baffled. The player's dismissal was overturned on Monday. He had been due to take charge of Wednesday's Liga 1 game between Angers and Troyes, but will now sit out until further notice. A referee's technical directorate statement confirmed on Monday. The decision was made after a phone call between DTA director Pascal Garabian and the president of the Federal Refereeing Commission, Eric Borgini. According to L'Equipe, Chapron has sent a report to the football authorities and acknowledged he made the mistake in showing Carlos a second yellow card in added time at the end of the defeat. And he's 45 years old, by the way. In a statement released via French media on Monday, Chapron apologized to Carlos for his actions, writing, "This maladroit gesture was inappropriate. As a result, I would like to present my apologies to Diego Carlos." A complimentary report has been sent to the disciplinary commission so that booking received by the FC Nantes player be rescinded, as the images showed me his gesture did not seem voluntary. During the match, I collided with Carlos at the moment of impact. I had a very sharp pain on a recent injury. It was bad reflex action that meant I struck my leg out at the player. He has been roundly criticized for his actions, with Nantes coach Claudio Ranieri expressing his surprise after the match. I've never seen that, the former Chelsea, Juventus, and Leicester City boss told media. I don't know if Chapron should be suspended. What I do know is that I wasn't able to have my player for the final few minutes. And the more serious thing is that he could be suspended for the coming match. But why? Why? And the article continues on. I'm not going to read this whole article. This article tells you a very interesting scenario of where we are with sports. And this is probably going to be my greatest closing to start the new year. This will be the simplest closing to kind of put it all in perspective. Referees need to stop. Let me repeat myself again, because I don't want it to seem like I'm being a nasty, rude butthole or whatever, however you want to put it. Referees need to stop. There is no problem with a person having any form of control, power, or management of a game. But when it comes down to the point where you're doing something that's not even relevant to the game or the moment, you need to stop. Even with Carmelo playing for a lot of teams and losing the way he has, the fact that he came out publicly and said this needs to stop, referring to the referees, that says a lot. Like, granted, he's played on teams that suck, but it's one of the few times he actually was valid in what he was saying. No exception with this story. You have no reason or reflex to kick someone and then make it as if it's, oh, I didn't mean to, I'm sorry. And meanwhile, that player still could possibly be suspended. And you're out indefinitely or for a period of time, not disclosed yet because we need to find out the extent of what you did. Okay. So my closing added thought to that is control and manage your destiny. And also, most importantly, because I'm being silly, like after the week, I always love to have fun with it because it's crazy. Some moments should be celebrated, but some moments do not deserve joy and celebration. If anyone is hurting or harming you in any way, shape, or form, and it's having an impact on you on a personal level, make the proper changes to remove that person, whatever you need to do, because that could be the opportunity of you saving your life. And that's what I'm going to leave y'all with tonight, or today, or this afternoon. Thank y'all for tuning in. As I said early in the show, in the beginning, past podcasts, PASS podcasts, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, website. I'm all over. I make it my goal to try to post as much content as I can. Most importantly, as I mentioned in the year review, brand like you mean it. So if you're trying to get yourself out there, let people know what you're doing. And if you don't feel comfortable doing it, talk to somebody who might be willing to do it. Most importantly, if you don't have to go to social media marketing companies, do it yourself or get somebody that's willing to just work with you and get your stuff exposed. Until next time, this is The Pass. I am BT. I am signing out. Y'all take it easy. Peace.